Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning, everyone. Guys, we are talking about Venezuela today, guys. Everything is Venezuela, Venezuela, Venezuela. It will be fast and it will be brutal. Now, I'm going to give you guys my speculation on US boots on the ground, likely military targets, likely military objectives, how long I think this campaign, I guess if you can call it that, is going to last. But before I do that, I'm going to give context because I know it's the Venezuela situation. The buildup is in the news, but I don't think people understand the deeper contextualization of this. And look, guys, I'm going to be throwing quite a lot of content on today. Not throwing content on. I'm going to be putting quite a lot of content on today because there's so much stuff happening right now. I don't want to have all these things just condensed into one video because the videos get very what's the word I'm looking for? The videos get very not muggled up. I think I'll save the muggling for a night time. Yeah, you guys that were on the live stream last night making me drink beer, you guys got me demonetized because I was playing music. But don't worry about it, guys. I was drunk. It's my own fault. I take my own actions to my own responsibility. So Venezuela, guys, I am going to be talking about Venezuela this morning. Once I've closed this live stream down, I'll be back on and I will be talking about the situation in the United Kingdom, the situation in Europe, because it does seem, and I don't want to touch on this. Guys. I don't want to touch on this. I don't want to touch on this too much. But the situation in the United Kingdom, the situation in Europe, it does seem like yesterday, at Christmas markets all over Europe, in the United Kingdom, there were masses of Muslims out protesting, banging their drums at Christmas markets. Now, I will talk about that on another live stream. There's been all sorts of crazy stuff, but we are talking about Venezuela this morning, guys. Okay, so I'm just going to give context on the current US Venezuela tension. So I will give this as a monologue. I will pause. I'll get the chat. I'll come back to the monologue, and then I'll give you guys what I think my likely targets. Well, what I would speculate this operation, how this operation would happen. So as of today, November the 30th. Wow, are we on the 30th already? Jeez. Make sure you've got your advent calendars for tomorrow, guys. As of November the 30th, 2025, the United States has escalated its military presence in the Caribbean with a significant naval buildup off Venezuela's coast, including the deployment of the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier strike group alongside cruisers, destroyers, support vessels. Now, these vessels are stationed 50 to 100 miles from the Venezuelan shores. I think it's quite clear for everybody to note that Venezuela is still within range of the US Air Force. So even though they have this strike carrier group off the coast of Venezuela, Venezuela itself is still well within range of US Air Force strikes and obviously, US based missiles. This marks the largest U.S. naval operation in the region since 1962, and we all know what happened in 1962, right? The fall of the Russian Empire, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Remember, guys, okay? In 1962, Vladimir Putin was watching as a young boy, and I believe that's what shaped him as a man where he is today. So this is the biggest U.S. naval buildup since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. And involves approximately 15,000 US personnel. While not a formally no-fly zone enforced by international mandate, which would require, having to go to the United Nations Security Council for approval, which is complicated. The Trump administration has effectively created restricted airspace through the Federal Aviation Administration advisory warnings of potential hazards. So again, it doesn't matter about all these little bits of paper. If you are the United States, if you are a big country, you can kind of do what you want. These little laws and these little bits of paper, they're only for the little kids. The big boys, they don't have to play by these rules. Whether you think it's right or wrong, guys, put it in the chat. I personally, I am biased. I'm Team America. I'm Team UK. I'm Team the West. And I will come on to the further context of this. So the United States, have effectively created a no-fly zone over the over Venezuela due to military activity, GPS interference, and at least 11 major airlines are to suspend flights. Donald Trump publicly declared on yesterday, 29th of November, that the airspace over Venezuela should be considered closed. You guys got to consider the airspace closed now. We're going to do a lot of crazy things over there. A statement rejected by Maduro's government as a colonial threat. The build-up, codenamed Operation Southern Spear, began in August 2025 under the guise of countering drug trafficking, but has evolved into a broader pressure campaign aimed at regime change in Nicolas Maduro's government. This stems from a long-standing US-Venezuela frictions. Now, one thing I always say to you guys on this channel is, when people say, is this country going to invade this country? Are these guys going to invade this country? You can't hide an invasion, guys. You cannot hide an invasion. You need troops. You need guns, tanks, bombs, trains, planes, automobiles. You need a shit ton of logistics to support those troops. So you cannot hide the buildup. And what we're seeing now in the Caribbean is you know what? Why am I saying Caribbean? Caribbean? I feel I'm at a stage of intellectual prowess now, and I can call it the Caribbean. So you can't hide these military buildups, and it's very clear that military buildup is there. Now, I'll give you guys, further context. Let me jump onto the chat, actually. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, you fine people. Stefan is saying the airspace over Venezuela looks pretty clear the last few days. Yeah, when the United States come out and say, guys, the airspace is closed, the airlines will listen. They're not going to say, oh, do you know what? I mean, look, guys, we've seen in recent memory quite a few civilian aircraft shot out the sky, and that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing when civilian aircraft fall out the sky. Never a good thing. We had the downing of MH17. We had the downing of the, what was the airplane? There was another airplane that it was a Ukrainian aircraft, and I think it was leaving, Iran. And the Iranian missile defense took it down. So there's all sorts of crazy stuff, and nobody wants a civilian aircraft falling out the sky. So when the United States say, listen, we're going to be shooting the shit out of this place over there pretty soon, allegedly, when the United States, they were going to start shooting the shit out of places, then the airlines kind of think, well, I know the airspace is open as far as the International Aviation Authority or whatever it is going, but I'm kind of not going to be flying over there because I don't want to get shot down. Morrow Minds is saying, what will happen on Friday? Right. Okay. So right. Yeah. Okay. Right, guys. Okay. So Gordon Gamesy, sorry, he's saying it will happen on a Friday. Yeah. So most likely these things happen on a Friday. Now the reason they happen on a Friday. So this is for Marrow Minds here, because Marrow Minds is asking what will happen on a Friday. So Marrow Minds, yeah, I don't know how long you guys have been following me, but one of the things, it's not a hard and fast rule. But more than most things, most of these big military operations, they happen on a Friday. Now, the reason they happen on a Friday, is because there's quite a few reasons it happens on Friday. First of all, if you do things on a Friday, people are off work. People finish early on a Friday. People are skiving. People have gone home. People are drunk. It's harder to call people back. That's the human. That's the human factor. Also, on a Friday, if you want to make a shit ton of money, and especially, especially in Venezuela right now, guys, because Venezuela is sitting on a huge oil deposit. So hypothetical, guys, for entertainment purposes only, let's just pretend, that there's, and I don't know if this is the case, guys, it's a total hypothetical. Let's just say that there is an oil refinery or something, or an oil pipeline, or a gas oil separation plant in Venezuela. And let's just say there's two of them. All right, let's just say there's two of them. And the United States, they know that they're going to, then when their military operation goes in, they know they're going to destroy one of them, which would only leave the other one. So guess what? The shares in that other company are going to absolutely rocket. The shares in that other company are going to rocket, and the shares in the other company are going to fall. Now, if you do this on a Friday, after the stock market's closed, you can make a shit ton of money, because then there's Saturday and Sunday for the market to readjust for when it opens back up on Monday. So you can make a shit ton of money if you know what's happening, and normally it will happen on a Friday. So, right, guys, let me continue with what's happening in Venezuela. So I want to give further political context. So there has been a political crisis. I don't know if you guys know this or not. So there's a political crisis at the moment in Venezuela. The disputed 2024 presidential election, where the opposition leader, Edmundo Gonzalez, claimed victory based on tally sheets showing a landslide. So this is kind of an... This is what happens in dictatorships. I remember when I was out in, I can't remember what year it was, in Afghanistan. I was working for USAID. And what we were doing is when the people came out, they would say, they have students basically outside the polling stations. And they say, do you mind telling me who you voted for? And they tally it up, And again, it's not an official number. It's not an official number, but I don't know when those tallies have been wrong. I really don't. I don't know when those tallies have been wrong. So in the 2024 election, the tally sheet showed a landslide victory for the opposition, Edmundo Gonzalez. It was certified as fraudulent by the opposition and much of the international community. Maduro's inauguration in January 2025, amid protests and sanctions, deepened the rift. The US and allies like the European Union have refused to recognize Maduro's legitimacy. So, people are saying that Maduro is a dictator. Now, look, guys, whether we believe this, whether we don't believe this, it kind of doesn't matter at this point. Because like what I always say, guys, all right, the truth doesn't really matter. It's the perception of that truth that matters. I don't know what these tally sheets were. I'm only telling you what I'm being told, okay? I'm still waiting to get an interview with my friend who's actually he's having some trouble at the moment. He's in Venezuela at the moment. So the West basically are viewing this regime as a dictatorship sustained by repression, corruption, and alliances with Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba. So we're starting to see this, we're starting to see these lines in the sand, aren't we? We're starting to see the United States going over here and the Europeans going over here. So there's also economic and human factors here, guys, okay? So Venezuela's collapse. Venezuela was once Latin America's richest nation. It's had, which has led to hyperinflation, food shortages, and over 7 million refugees, mostly in Colombia and neighboring countries. The United States has imposed sanctions on Venezuela's state oil company and regime officials, but Maduro retains control over the world's largest proven oil reserves. So I thought, listen, guys, and when I was looking at this, I thought the Saudi Arabians had the world's largest oil reserves. Now, what we mean here by proven oil reserves is they're getting the oil out. So those of you guys have heard me talk about Antarctica. There is more oil discovered in Antarctica, but it's not proven, i.e. we've not been, humans have not been able to extract that oil, but, it's only a matter of time. So the Venezuelans have the world's largest proven oil reserve. And that was news to me, guys. That was news to me. I always thought it was Saudi Arabia. But anyway, let's just say there's a lot of oil. But the United States do, in my opinion, the United States are eyeing that oil with a big thirsty, they need some democracy eagle. But the United States do see that as a strategic global vulnerability if the Venezuelans are destabilized further. Now we've got these drug trafficking allegations. Trump's executive orders in 2025 designated Venezuelan military-linked groups like the Cartel of the Sun as foreign terrorist organizations, accusing Maduro of narco-terrorism and raising his bounty to 50 million. I don't know. I bet Eric Prince is thinking about that. This provides legal cover for strikes under the 2001 Authorization of Military Force. It sounds like that there's a movie, isn't there? The first one was Sicario. What a great movie that was. The first movie was Sicario. I think the second one was... The second one in that series, I don't know what it was, but a similar thing happened. Since November, the United States drone and naval strikes have targeted suspected smuggling vessels in the Caribbean, killing at least 48 alleged narco-terrorism terrorists by mid-month. Escalation triggers. There's been escalation triggers, guys. Mid-November saw the formal launch, actually, of Operation Southern Spear, with the United States airstrikes on boats and hints of land targets. Maduro responded by mobilizing up to 8 million militia. I'll come back onto that in a second. Conducting coastal drills and fortifying Caracas with anti-vehicle barriers. Russian supplied systems like the Buk M2, I think that's so the Buk M2 is the same surface-to-air missile that took down MH17 over Donetsk. And we kind of forget about that, don't we? We kind of forget that the Russians allegedly, I'll come back onto that in a different live stream, actually. Experts have been assessing, though, guys, the Venezuelan military is outmatched. And I'm just going to let people know right now, the Venezuelan military is ridiculously outmatched. It's not even going to be it's going to be quick, guys. It will be quick, it will be brutal, and it will be efficient. So the deployment is framed as gunboat diplomacy to rattle Maduro, bolster the opposition, and potentially incite defections or uprising within Venezuela's armed forces, rather than a prelude to a full-scale war. I don't think this will be a full-scale war, guys. I think this will be a fast, aggressive strike to take key locations. The lessons learned from Afghanistan, lessons learned from Iraq. Those lessons were, if you stay around for tier medals, things go wrong. So when this happens, guys, and I do think it'll happen on a Friday. Which Friday? I don't know right now. I'm still waiting for my friend. He's having some. He was held. So for those of you guys who don't know, I've got a friend who's out there at the moment. He's He was held for 9 hours by the Venezuelan police, but they let him go. He's had a crash trying to get up to the front line. So it's difficult for me to get in touch with him at the moment. But as soon as I get an update, I will give you guys an update. Now, let me jump onto the chat, guys, and I'm going to talk about how a military operation would go, guys. I'll give you an update on how a military operation would go. The Loop is saying the attack. Once they manipulate the markets to make as much money as they can. Yeah. So, yeah. Exactly. And any of these military strikes, guys, they happen on a Friday. There's so many reasons why they happen on a Friday. They don't always happen on a Friday, of course. It might be a Wednesday, it might be a Tuesday, because what will happen is, and it just is what it is. It absolutely is what it is. The military, they will go in, they'll say, right, these are our targets. We're going to smash this shit up. Just tell us when to go. And then the politicians at the back making the decisions, they'll say, can you guys wait till Friday? And they're like, well, I mean, I can. Yeah, why? No reason. Mate, buy Raven Oil, buy Raven Oil because that place is about to, those shares are about to rocket. Buy into Raven Oil. And that's what they will do. You know, that's what they'll do. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Is it Nancy Pelosi? Pelosi? Nancy, she was the Speaker of the House in the United States. Her stock market trading portfolio, it beat everyone. Like her stock market, her stock market portfolio, her profit margins versus her losses, they beat everybody. Everybody in the United States. I think she was like the number one, allegedly anyway. I think she was like the number one, or at least like ridiculously high. And of course, you know, she's just a very astute stock market trader. She has no inside information, and of course, her husband being a big stockbroker has got nothing to do with anything. Destiny Workman is saying it's all about resources and nothing else. Yeah, you know, the all conflicts ultimately, guys, are about resources, and this is why, like, this for me, you know, as an unashamed space geek, you know. Why are we fighting and killing each other over finite resources on Earth when there's like asteroids and planets and all sorts of crazy shit above us that we can go and take those resources? You know, there's plenty of oil in the, you know, in space to go and, you know, that we don't have to fight each other. Donna Jenkins is saying, hi, all. Does anyone keep missing Sean's notifications? He may have to text me. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I have no... listen, maybe it's because last night when I was on the live stream, I was playing music and I got demonetized. I did, guys. My video last night got demonetized. And it is what it is. It's my own fault for getting, you know, for drinking too many beers and playing... what was I playing? Power Station. I was playing some Power Station. Right, let me come back to this, guys. So I want to give you guys a rundown now of how a military operation would go ahead. Like I said, you know, it will be fast and brutal, and the Venezuelans will have no... They'll be swizzled, guys. They'll be absolutely swizzled. So I do think a full-scale US ground invasion is unlikely. So what I mean by full-scale ground invasion, I mean, like, you know, amphibious landing craft coming ashore, all the logistics and everything. I do think... to occupy Venezuela, it's going to take a huge amount of manpower. So I don't think that a full-scale invasion is likely, but I do feel, you know, there would be precision strikes, special forces operation raids, cyber disruptions, and there would be a lot of asymmetric warfare with the hope and the intention to overthrow the government and put someone else in charge. Ultimately, the overreaching goal would be a rapid regime change, decapitation strike, or collapse, and that would to minimize US casualties and cost while securing strategic assets to prevent chaos, i.e., you know, the oil being sabotaged like Saddam Hussein did in what was it? Well, both invasions actually. In what was it? Was it 91 and 2000 and 91 and 2003? So based on what I'm looking at now, guys, you know, there'll be like a 5-phase operation, maybe. You know, it would be. So I'd say this would be a 5-phase operation. So the first phase of this military operation now. So let's just say that it's a Friday. The United States have deemed to go in. All the stock markets and all the stock brokers have, you know, they've all said, you know, yeah, we've all put our bets saying you guys need to go now. So the first step would be to neutralize air and missile defenses. That is always the first stage, guys. All right, regardless of what people say, these things, you know, things can happen concurrently. But the first stage is always for the West anyway, is always to assert air superiority. You know, and that would be to enforce the de facto no-fly zone and enable any follow-on strikes, US carrier-based F-18s, F-35s, whatever, destroying radar targets, destroying missile defenses, destroying any runways, destroying anything that can challenge the United States in the air. And that needs to happen, because when you've got special forces guys operating, you know, wherever, they may need to press that button, and that button is usually when you call in a big fuck off aeroplane. Now, there are a lot of there's a lot of things in the air. You could have the AC-130, the Spectre gunship, which, if you guys don't know what a Spectre gunship is, it's terrifying. If you're a bad guy and you hear that, which is what a Spectre gunship sounds like, it's game over. It really is game over. You don't want none of that. You don't want that Spectre gunship circling above you, because it's a bad day. So the first step would be to neutralize missile and air defenses. Second phase would be the decapitation strikes on the regime leadership. So they would target the government here. Now, this would be aims for a quick political collapse by removing the regime's core, similar to the Hunt for Saddam Hussein. You know, the CIA have already authorized lethal ground operations. That's already, you know, the CIA have already authorized them. Trump has drafted options for this, you know, and success could trigger defection. So what I think would happen is, once the leadership goes in Venezuela, then you would have what's his name? Then you had maybe Edmundo would be stepping up. Concurrently to that, I think there would be key infrastructure and ports. They would need to be seized. This would prevent the regime from sabotaging those, you know, sabotaging the oil fields and disrupting the global oil supply. So I do think those things would go hand in hand. You would then want to go on to disrupt and destroy the drug cartels network. So you would find out where those were. I would speculate that these have already been found out. So any ports, any drug trafficking, I don't know how you make this stuff, like chemists or something, those places would be destroyed. And then there would be a support, opposition, and humanitarian zone. So after all that's done, you would then support the opposition. So you would then support Edmundo. You would get Edmundo up there. You would get him in place, and you say, right, you're in charge now. We are going to go. And honestly, guys, I think all this would be done in 7 days. I think this would. I think you could do this in 7 days. I don't think the United States have the appetite to have boots on the ground for any longer than is absolutely necessary. You've got to understand as well what public opinion would be like in the United States. You would have Donald Trump with a massive win. Donald Trump would have a massive win. You know, he'd come out there, he could claim he's got a really big win. We've done a massive win in Venezuela, and you know what? I think that's fair. I think that's fair. You know, if they want to do that, and they've got the abilities to do that. Stefan is saying this is going to snowball. I know the US can flick them off, but what about Colombia, Brazil? Doubt they will put their feet up and watch this happen to Venezuela to stop a little scrap. So that's why it'll be quick, guys. Okay, what's happening in Venezuela right now? There's no way it can be. You know, it has to be quick. It has to be quick. If the United States stay in there, I would say it needs to be done. It needs to be done and dusted within a week. Literally, guys, it needs to be done and dusted within a week. Now, if you think about the situation on the ground in Venezuela, there's already been protests. There's already been cries of illegitimacy. I would say the people of Venezuela already want a regime change. So once you take down that regime, which is what the Russians see, the Russians tried to do this in Ukraine, but they overcalculated. They overplayed their hand. So how this goes wrong, how regime change goes wrong, is 2022 invasion of Ukraine. The Russians had been told, because they've got spies on the ground, the Russians have been told that the Ukrainians are ready to buckle, they're ready to give way, and if the Russian tanks roll in, then the Ukrainians will flop sides, switch sides, and they will be Russian. Didn't happen that way. The Russians overplayed their hand. So what happens is you get a devastating collateral like what they've had now. However, the situation in Venezuela is a lot different, because we've already seen in Venezuela that the people of Venezuela have been protesting. They've been protesting that what's his name? Eduardo. I think his name's Eduardo Maduras. Is it Maduras? Gonzalez, sorry. Eduardo Gonzalez, who claimed victory on the the 2024 election. He's already claiming that this that the leadership is a dictator and they've fudged the election results. Look, guys, this does happen. It does happen. I mean, we can speculate that this even happens in the United States as well. If anybody who actually thinks that Joe Biden won Trump in what year was that? Was it 21? Was it 2020? Yeah, it was 2020. Was it 2020? The 2020 election when Joe Biden won? Yeah, I think it was. I don't know how Joe Biden won Donald Trump. Anyway, Who Dares Wins is saying Maduro's top brass all rely on him for the drug trade. They will be loyal or risk jail. This could turn into a mess if IS isn't careful. So I think what they're going to do is, look, guys, this is going to be fast and brutal. There's no way around this. This is not going to be I would speculate as well, the people of Venezuela, are not the people of the Middle East. You see, one of the over miscalculations of the Middle East, one of the massive miscalculations in the Middle East was the Iraqis, the Afghanis, they were not ready to govern themselves. They weren't ready to govern themselves. And when you look how Saddam was governing them, it was brutal. And and now we have this problem on the streets in the United Kingdom where politicians and members of, politicians and decision makers, they thought they knew Islam better than Muslims, and they don't. And I will come on to that on another live stream, guys. There's going to be quite a few. I'm going to do quite a few live streams today. Like last night, things kicked off at lots of Christmas markets. Things were there. Like I've got one, two, three. Okay, so just what I've got here, there's 4 different Christmas markets where last night there was loads of pro-Palestinian protesters at these Christmas markets, waving their flags, very intimidating. And I'm just thinking, is nothing sacred anymore? Is nothing sacred anymore? You can see where this is going. You really can, guys. You can see where this is going. Sorry, going back to Who Dares Wins with a fantastic picture of a lovely yacht. He said Maduro's top brass all rely on him for the drugs trade. Yeah, so what we're talking about here is money. Now, once you destroy that network and once you take down that network, all those guys will crumble. All those guys will crumble. They'll all start wanting to go legitimate. They'll all start wanting to do things by the book. All of a sudden, they'll all be denying that they had any ties with anything. So yeah, this is why it's going to be a quick strike, guys. It will be a fast and brutal. The Venezuelan military, they're not going to put up any fight. I don't even think they'll get any missile defenses off because, it's very difficult for me to explain the might of the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Naval Air Force. I know I say this all the time, but the biggest air force in the world is the United States Air Force. The second biggest air force is the United States Navy. So, air power, once you've got air superiority, it's pretty much over. It's pretty much over because your special forces guys, they can operate then wherever they want. They can send airstrikes. They can do helicopter insertions. Once you've got air superiority, it's pretty much over. It's pretty much over, or you've pretty much got the game. Oh, hang on a minute. Band again is saying, what's the new phantom weapon the UK has used on Russia? I don't know. Let me have a look at this. I've no idea what that is. I can't find anything. The only thing I can find is a phantom computer game. The only thing I can find is a Phantom computer game. Oh, hang on a minute. Yeah, you're gonna have to give me. Can you give me more context? I don't know what the new Phantom weapon is. I can't see anything, and it's certainly something I feel I should know about if I've missed it. But I don't know what the Phantom. I don't know what the Phantom weapon is. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining for the first time, we have been talking about, and we are talking about Venezuela. U.S. boots on the ground. It will be fast and brutal now. I've just given you guys context. I may give you guys context again shortly if anybody's missed that. Basically, in a nutshell, in a Reader's Digest version, I am saying that the likelihood of a full-scale invasion is low, but there would be limited special forces operations where they're going into Venezuela to seize key elements of Venezuela. To seize key elements of Venezuela. Now, the political buildup and the social buildup in Venezuela makes this very appealing for the United States, because you've got to look at these things politically as well. You don't want to do these things. You don't, like, if you're Donald Trump, for example, he doesn't want to go into Venezuela and have a lose. He doesn't want to see U.S. troops coming back in body bags. He doesn't want to see U.S. troops failing. So it's going to have to be very fast. It's going to have to be very brutal, and it's going to have to seize those objectives. And we've already got the opposition in place for Maduro. We've already got the precedents whereby they've got they're saying that there's narco terrorism into the United States, and that those drugs that they're sending, and you know what, I will say that's right as well, that the drugs that they're sending into the United States are causing a lot of harm to the Americans. Hang on a minute. And Bandagain is saying, in fact, no, Sherry is saying morning. Oh, I'm saying morning to you, Sherry, as well. Good morning. Sixth generation, untraceable, can't be seen on any radar. I don't know what that means, though. What is it? I don't know what it is. What is it? An aircraft? Is it a drone? Is it like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what that. Okay, let me try and Google British Phantom drone. No idea. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. Yeah, I don't know where you're getting that from. I feel I would know what. So I feel like I would know what that is. That's certainly something that I would know about. Again, I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying I feel that's something I would have known about as soon as it got released. But I don't know what it is. Right, guys, listen. I am going to give you guys a quick rundown again of the situation in Venezuela, and then I am going to be closing this live stream down. I am going to be doing quite a few live streams today because there's so much stuff happening. I didn't want to put them all. I didn't want to put everything into one live stream because it conflicts with the title. If I say we're doing a live stream and we're talking about Venezuela and how this is going to be it's literally what's going to happen in Venezuela is going to be a special forces operation. It really is. You could see US 82nd or 101st Airborne landing on runways, taking control of runways. You will see US Navy SEALs on little birds, or maybe even. No, probably not little birds. They don't have the range. You would see US Navy SEALs on the back of CH-40. No, there's another one that the US Navy SEALs use. I think it's called the CH-48. I don't know. It's a Chinook helicopter, but it's been upgraded for the US Navy SEALs. It's got like a big antenna on the front. So you would see these type of operations into Venezuela, and I do think that is likely, guys. It will happen on a Friday. I don't know which Friday. I don't know this Friday or next Friday. So let me give you guys a quick rundown, real quick, on what's been happening in Venezuela. I'll give you guys a context. I'll go over I'll just do it really quickly. I'll give you guys what my my perceived military objectives would be, and then we'll think about closing this down. So for those of you who don't know, guys, there are tensions building in the Caribbean, and I'm not talking about Jack Sparrow. I'm not talking about Jack Sparrow on the Black Pearl. I'm talking about the US Venezuela tension. So as of today, what are we on, the 30th? Is it 30th? No, it's definitely 30th. As of the 30th, the United States has escalated its military presence in the Caribbean with a significant buildup off the coast of Venezuela, including the deployment of the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft strike carrier group alongside cruisers, destroyers, and other support vessels. These vessels are positioned 50 to 100 miles from the Venezuelan shores. Now, this marks the largest U.S. naval operation in the region since the Cuban Missile Crisis and involves approximately 15,000 personnel. Now, there is a no-fly zone, but there's not an official no-fly zone. So, while not a formal no-fly zone enforced by international mandate, which would require like UN Security Council approval, and that's legally complicated, the Trump administration has effectively created its own restricted airspace through the Federal Aviation Administration advisory warnings of potential hazards. Potentially hazardous conditions over Venezuela due to military activity and GPS interference, which has led to 11 major airlines suspending the flights. President Trump publicly declared yesterday that the airspace over Venezuela should be considered closed. A statement was rejected by Maduro, saying it is a colonial threat. The build-up, named Operation Southern Spear, began in August 2025 under the guise of countering drug trafficking, but has evolved into a broader campaign aimed at regime change in Maduro's government. This stems from a long-standing US-Venezuelan frictions. Political crisis. Now, there's been previous political crisis, and this is why the situation in Venezuela dictates a special forces operation. This is not going to be, a long, drawn-out conflict. I think this will be done and dusted in a week, 7 days, guys. I think it'll be done and dusted in 7 days. So the dispute at 2024 Venezuelan elections, where the opposition leader, Edmundo Gonzalez, claimed victory based on the tally sheets. So that happened. The opposition, they claimed victory. Edmundo Gonzalez, he claimed victory. However, Maduro claimed it was fake, and Maduro stayed in power. The US and allies, like the EU, have refused to recognize Maduro's legitimacy, viewing him as a dictator sustained by repression, corruption, and alliances with Russia, China, and Iran. There's also economic and human factors taken into consideration. Venezuela's collapse, once Latin America's richest nation, has led to hyperinflation, food shortages, and over 7 million refugees, mostly in Colombia and neighboring countries. The United States has posed sanctions on Venezuela's state oil company and regime officials, but Maduro retains control over the world's largest proven oil reserves. Now, again, when I talk about Antarctica, there is more oil in Antarctica, but the oil in Venezuela, it's proven, i.e. they're pumping it out, they're taking that oil. There's also the drug trafficking allegations. So Donald Trump's executive order in 2025 designated these cartels as terrorist groups, which authorized the use of military force. You've also got mid-November saw a formal launch of the Operation Southern Spear with the US airstrikes on boats and hints of land targets. Now, I do think a full scale invasion is unlikely. I do think this would be a special forces operation. There would be raids, there would be airstrikes. It would have to be quick, and when you're doing something quick, it has to be brutal, guys. It has to be brutal. It does. So, I'm just going to run through these, guys. I think the first phase would be to neutralize any air and missile defenses. That would, give the United States air superiority. Once you've got air superiority, you can then move in your soldiers. You can move them in with impunity. If your soldiers get in trouble, they can call in gunships. They can call in air support. They can also call in helicopters to get them out if they're in trouble. So once you've got air superiority, there will be decapitation strikes on their regime leadership. But I do think this would be done simultaneously as seizing key infrastructure and ports. So any oil producing, any oil rigs, any gas oil separation plants, any ports to do with that. And look, guys, whether you like this or not, this is what I would do. Once you've taken control of the key ports and infrastructure, you then want to disrupt and destroy the drug trafficking command centers. I don't know where they are. I don't know what they are. I would assume that they're growing something and then they're refining it into drugs and then they're selling it. So whatever that is, whatever those places are, and you can't hide these things at this level. You can't hide these things at this level. These will be big industrialized systems. So those things I would speculate would get airstrikes. Those things would get missiles come down on them. I don't think you would. It would make no sense to send in your special forces guys to do that. It would just be a waste it would be an unnecessary risk because you don't want to keep those things intact. You don't want to keep those drug laboratories. I don't know what they call them. Laboratory of chemists. I don't know. You wouldn't want to keep those things intact. So it would make absolutely no sense to send in your special forces guys because it's just unnecessary risk. So those things would get hit by airstrikes. You would then want a brief period of support for the opposition and humanitarian zones. So once you've gone in, for example, let's just make it real simple. Airstrikes, take out the air defense, use your special forces guys to seize government buildings, key government buildings, overthrow the government, bring Edmundo Gonzalez in, say, right, mate, you're in charge now. You won the election. All the drug trafficking places have been destroyed. We've got control of the oil. We're probably going to keep control of the oil. Whether you like this or not, guys, this is what I would do. And then we're going to leave. I think the whole thing will take 7 days. I don't see any longer than 7 days. You don't really want to be leaving those guys there any longer than seven days. Phantom Storm. Right, Phantom Storm. Is this the decoy thing? Oh, right. Okay. Okay. So there's something on. Okay. So there's something on YouTube. Okay. So there's something on YouTube. I don't. Right. Let me just look at this, guys, a second. Give me a second. Okay, so I'm reading this from 3 days ago. It says a Russian command bunker outside Luhansk vanished in seconds. No radar detected it. No satellite tracked it. No soldier heard it coming. Just a blind flash and an impossible perfect crater where Russia's most fortified installation once stood. The Kremlin is in full panic mode because Ukraine just deployed a weapon that rewrites every rule of modern warfare. The UK's Phantom Storm. This isn't a missile. It's not a drone. It's a zero signature precision-guided weapon that moves silently, strikes invisibly, and leaves no trace. We break down how this classified UK black budget program technology that bypasses all detection systems, why Russian generals are arguing in a crisis meeting with no answers, how magnetic aerodynamic skin allows it to glide undetected beneath radar horizons, which is, and what this means for the future of warfare itself. Okay, so first of all, I think it's BS. I think this is BS, guys. I think this is absolute BS. I think it's BS. I think it's absolutely BS. I will ask about this. I think it's BS. Nothing flies without a signature, guys. Nothing flies without a signature. What they're talking about in that what she said there basically was stuff that breaks laws of physics. And I don't know what can break laws of physics. Yeah, guys, I think it's BS. So I think the Phantom Storm is BS. I will find out for you guys, though. I know just the guy to speak to. I will find out for you guys later on about that. I think it's BS, guys. I think it's absolute BS. I don't know where the story came from. I think it's BS. You know, we still have to work on known physics. We still have to. We can't use the. You know, yeah, I think it's BS, guys. I think it's absolute BS. Destiny Workman is saying didn't work out good in Iraq for the Americans. Yeah, so the situation in Venezuela is a lot different, guys. The situation in Venezuela is a lot different. In Iraq, there wasn't another leader that was ready to take the place. You know, it was just topple Saddam, have free and fair elections, you know, and you know that was the plan. You know, that was the plan. Topple Saddam, have elections, everyone will be fine. That didn't really happen. You know, that did not happen because the Iraqis were not ready. There wasn't anybody waiting in the thickets to take over. The situation in Venezuela is very different. And again, but you are right. It didn't work out in Iraq, but there's always a but. I think everybody knows this. And I would say it didn't work out that well in Afghanistan either. I think everybody knows this. And that's why I don't foresee this military operation to last any longer than 7 days. I don't see it lasting any longer than 7 days, guys. It can't. They need to get in, take down the regime, destroy the targets I just said, and then get out. That would be a good operation. U2 Phantom Storm. Yeah, guys. I think it's BS, guys. I think this Phantom Storm I think it's BS, guys. I think it's absolute BS. Although I will find out for you later on. I will find out for you guys later on. The UK is trying out secret weapons in Ukraine. Listen, guys, it could be true. It could be true. There could be something there operating on unknown physics, or I might just not understand what they're saying me. Or, but you know what? Maybe they don't understand how these things are operating, because you do get that quite a few times. Quite a little bit. You get people who are. And look, guys, just because this video is being put out on on a smaller channel, it doesn't mean that the information's any less credible. All I'm saying is, from what I've heard about this storm, what are we calling it? The Phantom Storm. Sorry, the Phantom. What I'm hearing about this Phantom Storm, I know there's the storm. There's a decoy drone. There's a decoy drone that the British military have, and that looks, that it's basically a drone, and they deploy that decoy drone, and it can give the signature of a much bigger aircraft or a fighter jet or a whatever, and that's as a decoy. So you can send. I know you can send drones out, and they look like different things on the radar. But what I just read there, it's not operating on known physics, and we kind of need to operate on known physics. Again, let me be clear. It may be the people who are reporting on this don't actually know what they're reporting on. That may be the case, and they're saying that these things are operating on unknown physics, which is just impossible. You see, I can remember. So I had a friend. And before we went to Iraq in 2003, My friend went to see his daughter at school. Sorry, my friend's daughter while she was at school. She had to tell the classmates that her daddy had, because it was quite an honourable thing back then. She had to tell her classmates that her daddy had gone to the war in Iraq, and she said, yeah, my daddy's gone to Iraq so we can have 20 pence cheaper petrol. I mean, when we talk about fighting over things, isn't fighting? Look, guys, and I know it's ridiculous. We should be going into the stars. We should be taking the do you know that there's a moon, one of Saturn's moons called Titan? That whole moon, go and Google it, guys, Titan. That whole moon is made of hydrocarbons. It's literally like hydrocarbons. It's got a good gravity. It's got a good atmosphere. We could go and live on Titan. We could go and live on Titan. There's a shit ton of oil out there, which kind of puts this theory that oil and hydrocarbons are plant matter, decomposing plant matter, right? Right? Am I right on that, guys? Am I right on that? Sorry, where was I going with this? Yeah, so it's absurd that we're fighting over resources on Earth, but doesn't it make more sense? Doesn't it make more sense to fight? I mean, we're humans, guys. We will always fight over resources. Every animal fights over resources. You can go and look at I don't know. Look at the red squirrel. Look at the red squirrel and the gray squirrel. The gray squirrel is more efficient at taking resources. So the red squirrel's gone. So they've been fighting over resources. You can look at there are monkeys in I don't know, maybe Africa or something, that fight over apple trees. They fight over apple trees. So humans fight over resources. That's just the way we go. And Bandagani is saying everybody laughed at the UK's Challenger 2 tanks having rifle barreled, but it's got accuracy and longer range than Russian tanks, and its killing range is way better. Okay, so So when we talk about these weapons, guys, when we talk about these wonder weapons and these new technological advances, you've got to think, okay, in what numbers can you deploy them? In what effective numbers can you deploy them? What's the servicing? How readily available are the parts? Because there's a lot more to go into these things than just having this one-off wonder weapon. Listen, guys, I'm going to jump into that. I am going to jump into the Phantom, what is it called? The Phantom drone or whatever it is. I'll literally phone someone up right now and I will get you guys an update on the Phantom drone. I think it's bullshit, guys. I do. I think it's bullshit. I've never heard of it. I think somebody's just making this up from something, because this is something I would have known about. But anyway, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying I think it's BS. Listen, and I've been wrong before. You guys know I've been wrong before. I will, like when you guys were telling me about the people coming in on the planes, and there's Sean and masses of people coming into the United Kingdom on airplanes, secret soldiers being flown in. I was like, no, that's not happening, guys. That is totally absurd that would happen. Turns out you guys were right and I was wrong. So I will find out about that for you guys later on today. I will find out. I will find out later. Up the hill and around the corner is saying secret shiny phantom balls. So look, guys, there are definitely 100% secret weapons that people don't know about. When we say that, when I read things and they say straight away that they're defying the laws of physics, I'm questioning this. Now, I'm not. What I will say is the reason I said this Phantom Strike or whatever it was bullshit is because I read that and it says it's defying the laws of physics, right? Which you can't do. Now, because everything has to operate in the laws of physics now, unless it's like an alternate dimensional weapon. And I don't think they're going to be using alternate dimensional weapons in Ukraine. It would, it would give the Russians, like, because when you use one of, and again, and another thing, when if let's just say if, all right, let's just say if this is a weapon that is using unknown physics and it's operating in an alternate dimension or something fucking wild, all right. Why are you gonna use that on taking out a bunker in Luhansk? Because what you do then is you tell the Russians that it's possible. So now the Russians know that this is possible. So the Russians are thinking, oh shit, right, so these guys can operate. Oh, and then they say, listen, the Russians will then get their scientists in and they say, hey, mate, you know that shit we were talking about? We thought it wasn't possible. Look, the Brits have just done it. And they've done what? They've took out a target in Luhansk. So it doesn't make any sense to do that, guys. It doesn't make any sense to operate on unknown physics. Anyway, I will... Oh, hang on a minute. Okla Freedom has become a new member. Welcome, Okla Freedom. I hope you're going to be a powerful contributor to this channel, buddy. Do you know what? I know you're going to be a powerful contributor to this channel, and thank you so much for becoming a member, buddy. I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate all the members. I do. I appreciate all the members, guys. I'm going to be putting lots of content on today. Lots of content. So yeah, I don't see that as an actual thing because they're operating on outside the laws of physics. Now, again, why would you risk letting the Russians know that you have that technology to take out a bunker in Luhansk? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Something like that is like a war-winning weapon. So you would use that that would be a weapon that you use to decimate your enemy in the time of a world war. That's when you would use that weapon system. You wouldn't risk the enemy getting that technology. Another thing that it could be, and I don't know I'm just giving you guys my opinion. What it could be is something's happened and the people who are reporting on it don't really understand what they're reporting on because they don't understand weapons, they don't understand tactics, they don't understand guns, bombs, tanks, trains, planes, automobiles, strategy, tactics. They don't understand this stuff, so they're just reporting on it, and they may not actually know. I will dig into that, guys, and I'll try and get you guys an update like as soon as I can. I may even do that as a video for the I may even do that as a short video. Oh, and thank you, April, for sending a super. April sent a $1.99 super. Thank you so much, April. Guys, you guys are too kind. Is this because I got my live stream demonetized last night? Because you guys were getting me drunk. You guys were making me drink more beer. You guys were making me drink more beer. Right, guys, listen, I am going to close this down now. I said this was going to be a short one. It's not. You guys have kept me on. Listen, I am going to be putting quite a bit of content on today. I will be... Oh, hang on. Yeah, I don't think that, guys. I will get you guys an update on this. I will, guys. I'll get you guys an update on this. Starmer is an alien using alien technology. Starmer may indeed be an alien using alien technology, but I just don't see the strategic use for that, guys. Okay, I don't see the strategic benefit of using one of those weapons to take out a bunker in Luhansk. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close this down now. Thank you for hanging out with me, guys. Just the crux of this live stream. We've been talking about the situation in Venezuela. It will be fast. It will be brutal. If US boots on the ground go in, I don't think there's going to be a full-scale invasion. I think this will be quick. I'm predicting 7 days max where you would take down. You sounded just like Trump. I'm going to take that as a compliment, guys. I'm going to take that as a compliment. But anyway, guys, listen, I am going to close this down now. I'm going to be back on. I'm going to do plenty of content today because there's lots of stuff I need to get through. And, you know, I can't do it in one live stream because it just gets muggled up and you're talking about different things. I'll save the muggling for tonight, guys. I'll save the muggling for tonight. So I am going to close this down. I'll be back on for the main live stream tonight at 8. But I will be putting more videos on in the day, guys. I'm going to be talking about things that have been happening in the United Kingdom, in Europe. It does look like the Christmas markets are being attacked. Be careful if you're going to go to a Christmas market, and I'll see you guys later.